Hello, listeners and viewers. This is Ron Stefanski with Disrupt Ed, the host of a podcast talking about the gobsmacking technologies that lie before us. And I've had the privilege, honor, and energy to sustain a series of conversations with one of the people at the center of this technology storm, and that's Jerad Finck at Cosmic Wire. And, Jerad, I've said it before. I invoked your dad as an example of another person who's probably sitting with me on the sidelines, not necessarily understanding the complexity of all of this. But I will say this in all of our conversations, as we've begun our collaboration together and as our friendship has grown, one of the things that you do better than so many people is you are able to take concepts that are very complex and difficult to understand and make them relatable and simple to understand. And as a consequence, more useful for us to understand in the context of other equally complex things. I think about my father in law, David Stewart, who was a philosophy professor at Ohio University. And he was a professor who had the special art that you do, and that is taking very complex ideas and breaking them down for a classroom of learners. And so, in this next clip, I'd like to talk to you about some pretty complex things that many of us are struggling to understand. And let's start with blockchain and Web3. These are buzzwords to a lot of us that make us cringe or make us shut down or make us go, wow, that's a world I'm never going to understand. And maybe you can help us by putting an explanation around it that we can all grasp.
Yeah, I mean, blockchain in general is just ledger technology. And by ledger, it can be any kind of arbitrary data point, and any arbitrary data point can be anything. Originally, when people started kind of like trying to monetize this, they were, taking a kind of like what I would say a Bitcoin approach, which is essentially like the first NFT. As in, each individual piece of Bitcoin is its own individual address, and that's what makes it so valuable. It can't be replicated. It's one of one, and you can ascribe whatever value you want to that, which makes it what it is. NFTs were essentially the same idea, where you could have something, and whatever that something is, it's a one of one. It has its own digital fingerprint. It's the same thing that we try to do with paintings, with like chain of custody and provenance. You have books and books and books of documents saying why this is the Mona Lisa, and here's all the research, and here's all the nonsense that you have to go through to make this be this one thing. Blockchain takes that entire book, right, and puts that into a piece of line item data that's inside of a container that's put onto the block, which is what the blockchain is, just bits of blocks. And those blocks have bits of data inside of it, and those are what the ledger is. And that's why it's so powerful. We can do that for anything. It's literally the digital equivalent of when you were writing in your checkbook and you wrote your little ledger line item and your balance and so forth. Now
Right.
being digital, and that's all that it really is. So when I started really diving into it, my first gig in 2000, when I was doing the tech stuff, was down in Mountain View in Silicon Valley, and we were doing SAP implementation. It had just started. It was the very, very start of all of that kind of like digital ledger technology, where we were literally taking like QuickBooks. I mean, all that kind of stuff that came out of Intuit and SAP was the first version of this. The problem with it is that we're writing to databases, and databases have massive vulnerabilities. At the time, it was the next best step. So this is taking those ledger items and putting them into blocks so that we're not living in this kind of like digital vault, where if people get into the vault, they pillage everything. Now there's nothing to pillage because it's all sitting on chain, and we're using ledger to control the data flow. That means that that arbitrary data can literally be anything. And when you start tying it to function-based thing, which is where smart contracts come in, and that's what can we do with those blocks of data, and what can we make as the function of that. And a smart contract can be two people that are basically minting the block in real time, where they're both signing off and making that piece of ledger happen. Or it can be an end-to-end encryption, where like we send a command or we're telling it to do something, and then once it achieves that, that is the block. And that can be anything. Can be your system processes, can be what you're uploading, can be messaging, can be Your bank statements can be the entire world. This is POS systems. It's everything that we're doing right now can be ran through these smart contract derivations to make everything on block, which creates validity, transparency across all systems. And that's where we went, is like, this works everywhere. It doesn't matter what it is, because we're all sending emails, we're all updating systems, we're all doing QuickBooks, we're all doing data entry. It doesn't matter. Medical coding, all of that stuff, right, is the archaic
Right.
version of this, right? And that's what the shift is. Web3, I think, is still amorphous a little bit, in that
Mm-hmm.
there isn't a clear definition. But what I will say is that our interpretation of what we believe Web3 is and how we've defined it as a company is spatial web. And that's the amalgamation of using these blockchain-based systems to go and run all of our systems and data entry and collection and behavioral analytics and everything else that we're doing, mixed with immersive spatial web. How we're bringing digital experiences into the analog and analog into the digital experiences, or for lack of better, instead of looking at the TV, you're inside of it now. You're living inside of the environment, where you can create much more robust experiences around all of the stuff you love, from even having like friends over for dinner, to going to a concert, to going to your doctor appointment. You don't have to go sit at the DMV for 6 hours now. You can walk into the DMV from the website and go talk to the volumetric hologram using your blockchain authenticated KYC, KYB, that is your system inside of a block, to have a valid interaction. And all of that becomes superfluous.
Okay, that's quite remarkable. Right there, I'm going to stop you. Being able to take your DMV experience and shorten it by 5 hours is something that everyone listening to this broadcast will appreciate, because all of us have been stuck in the DMV hell that's out there. So you're talking my language here. This is making sense. As I listen to you talking about these very complex things, I'm always heartened because I'm getting it. I'm one of these people that doesn't get it at first, but I ultimately do get it. And, if you were describing some of the biggest misconceptions about blockchain, what do you think it would be? Because I think this is a very helpful way for a lot of us to unpack what this is all about and what the implications of it are.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that blockchain is NFTs, and NFTs, are blockchain, because that's kind of what happened. It turned into these kind of redundant collections, and which were, I mean, for lack of better, pink stock trading scams. I mean, it was communities flipping stuff back and forth, and there was no real value in it, because there was no utility put to what you were collecting outside of the act of just collecting it. Um, Blockchain is not assets. Blockchain is ledger. It is a database system. It is just a digital inscription of whatever it is that you're doing. Whether that's pushing a button on your keyboard, or it could be mowing your lawn. Like, all of those things can be put into this database, which we can derive data flow, because data is kind of the most valuable, most important thing in the world. If I have a digital store, knowing like that people click on this part of the screen on Thursday this many times at this zip code, and you can see where they're going next inside of that, but you're not harvesting any of their personal data. It's a macro level, right? So you're seeing basically blockchain variables. It's just nodes that are
Right.
buzzing around this thing. It's an entirely different kind of awareness of how you can go manipulate your systems to go and maximize your efforts. But it's also the inverse of, like, now we can do real behavioral analysis. If we talk about fishing lures, right? Now I'm going to see 27,000 fishing lure ads on my Facebook feed because of all the predictive analysis, and it's listening, and it's assuming that because I said fishing lures, that's what I'm looking for. Or if I said baby books, right? What it doesn't know is that maybe it's my cousin's wedding who's having, or cousin's pregnancy who's having their first child, and I have nothing to do with it, but it was just what I was looking for in the moment. So predictive analysis is kind of like throwing stuff against the wall a little bit based off of some rough trajectory, whereas this, we know exactly what you're looking for and know exactly what it is that you want. And not we, but like the blockchain, the system. So it can go and filter all the garbage out so that you can actually get to the stuff that you want, instead of being force fed from these companies who are from the top. It's a completely different thing because every person is in charge of their data. You're not surrendering your data. You're in these zero trust environments. You're decentralized. You're not beholden to any macro system. So you get to use all of the systems to synergize what you want because you're in control, as opposed to all the systems shoving what they think you want at you. It's flipping the script entirely. And if you understand that concept, that's what Web3 is. It's the decentralization of all of the
I think
information flow.
that is a great description. This centralization of everything. I think that's really, really powerful. So, Jerad, where will you take it from here?
I believe that Cosmic's mission is to deliver it, right? It's not about, like, we're going to deliver the toolkit and the interchain protocol and all of the tools to allow people to do volumetric holograms from their home and immersive spatial web and all of the stack that we've put together, which we call like an OS level stack for Web3. We have our own creative visions of the fun projects and things that we want to do with it, but it's about just taking it out so that anyone and everyone can use this toolkit to go and expand it, and that's really the mission for us.
You've been listening to Jerad Finck share with me this very, very unique journey he's been on and where he's taken flight through the auspices of his new venture, Cosmic Wire. You're going to be hearing more from the two of us. I've joined forces with the Cosmic Wire team to help bring you this story because I think it's game changing, because I think it's really important that we understand these things. And in understanding them, we can feel more confident that the world is a bright and shiny place full of new light. And I think that's what I take away from these conversations, because I understand that someone is working toward benevolent purposes, toward creating a better sense of community, toward creating a better sense of empowerment for people to take their unique skills, talents, and experiences and explode them on a global stage. Thank you, Jerad, for sharing these, and we'll be back with more as we explore the cosmic explanations for all things digital here with Jerad Finck from Cosmic Wire. Thank you.